Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to our latest little webinar. So this is called Welcome to Revolutionise Your Data Management and Say Goodbye to Spreadsheet Chaos, a nice punchy title. So my name's Craig Pearson. I'm the Sales and Marketing Director here at your IT department. Just in case you don't know who we are, we provide a complete outsourced IT department for small and medium-sized businesses across the Midlands and across the UK. So the way that I kind of describe that, we do everything from fixing the printer to agreeing the IT strategy and budget and everything in between. We work with about 100 clients, and we know that most people are on Microsoft 365. And that they're not using, or they're only using a fraction of what they're actually paying for. So we're on a bit of a mission to make that a little bit better and improve how people are using it and improve the level that they can use it to. So we've started working with a leading digital transformation expert who I will introduce you to in a moment, and he's going to take over and do most of what we're talking about today. So he's a seasoned data analytics, business process automation and bespoke app developer, which is a bit of a mouthful. So in short, he helps businesses use their existing technology to become more efficient and therefore more profitable. That's there in a nutshell. So we've got Eldon's going to do presentation. The Q&A is available, so type any questions in there. We'll either do those as we go along or pick them up at the end. And basically you want less of me and more of Eldon, so I'm going to hand over to him straight away. I will turn my camera off and take it away, Eldon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Craig, and thanks so much for everyone who's in attendance as well. So today I'm going to take you through a journey of just understanding some of the possibilities that are available within Office 365. So everything I'll showcase here is completely free and available to you already. So you can take advantage from today forwards and hopefully improve your data management. So what we have is a scenario where there's a company that manages a number of properties across Derbyshire. And the issue that they've been having is they need to record incidences that happen at these properties. So these are various different issues that they have. So this could be people getting injured, police getting called, and anything ranging from that. So I'm going to take you through a journey of John, the manager, who has been managing 3 other managers who then report into him. So if incidents happen, a manager logs it into an Excel spreadsheet. And now I'm going to share my screen with you guys as well, so I can take you through that. Yeah, perfect. So yeah. So now we have this Excel spreadsheet, which everyone is familiar with Excel. So this Excel spreadsheet allows for the team to be able to manage some of their processes. So what they have is for the different properties, the locations are listed here on the left. And then they also have different people that work under those managers that then report the incidences. And how we normally take in incident reporting can be via email, in person, or via phone call. And then a manager or an individual comes in and logs this information. So this was working when the data was small, but then John, the leading manager, realized something was an issue. So they were having to send multiple emails to say, I've updated the spreadsheet and also share it across. Sometimes they'll also lose data and they wouldn't know where the data had gone because there was no record of it whatsoever. And sometimes there was no accountability. It was also really difficult for them to be able to understand who was the person that was in charge of inputting this data. So this data for John was just so unreliable and he couldn't make any decisions with it. And also John realized one thing, that it wasn't scalable in any way, shape or form, and he couldn't really interact with the data in a way that was meaningful for him when he was having meetings with his site managers. So his site managers were really struggling with trying to improve because this data statically wasn't giving any information, it wasn't talking to them whatsoever. So John then decided that, this wasn't good enough because the amount of data that was lost and the amount of times where they would have multiple versions of this spreadsheet where they were trying to help each other to find which version are we working on, which one are we talking about. It just became a headache. So this then kind of gave John an idea to think, okay, there must be another solution out there. And essentially what really comes up in John's mind is to say, well, let's get another program in, get something else. But then he wanted something that was integrated with the Office 365 and how he's working. So this kind of started the birth of of Microsoft List. So Microsoft List is essentially part of SharePoint, and I'll start with SharePoint. So what is SharePoint? SharePoint is kind of imagine a portal where you can manage communications for your company, you can manage documents, and you can also have a little bit of a mini database, as we have here, as you can see before you as well. And that database is what's called a SharePoint list. And a SharePoint list just allows you to have a little bit more than what you get from Excel. So this then kind of gave a start to John and his team. So they replicated what they had in Excel across over to here as well, into SharePoint. So as you can see, they have all the different fields. But looking at it from the surface, it's a much better view that John and his team had. So they now had color-coded of all the different information that they had. They now had separation. But then one thing which was really key for John, which was a massive quick win, they now had accountability. So what I mean by that is they could see who created the data at the time, and also when they created it. And this was important for John when he was in those conversations with his managers to say, okay, guys, can you talk to me a little bit more about this particular incident? So this was already a quick win for him as well. And other things that was massive quick win for John was his team now had a new way of entering the information into the database that allowed for a consistent format and for consistency across the board. So what I mean by that is with SharePoint list, once you have it created, you then have a new nice form that comes up. So if I click on to new, it opens up the side window panel and I have some options. So if a new incident was to come in, I have the ability to choose which location. And as you can see, they now all have a standard name because they're all part of a dropdown. Again, this just makes it easy for us to be able to read the data. Because previously, John's team, they had some people spell Sheffield Road with a capital R and some without. And this just wasn't consistent and easily to read. So we can do that as well. And we can fill in the form in a way that's now more consistent to how John expects the data to come in. So if I just do one for Ryan here, and again, we can see a drop down. So this is making life easier for them as well. And then on top of that, we then now have a way to categorize the incidences that are coming in. And this was a major thing for John because he wanted to know, so that way he can have a brief overview to understand exactly what are some of his main priorities, so he can gear his training towards this as well. So as you can see here, we have a consistent drop down where if somebody is to put something down, they know exactly kind of which category it falls into as well. So for example, I'll do behavioral issues. And with behavioral issues, we can then say how severe it was. So John provided a guideline for his team that allowed them to be able to kind of categorize this as well. So when they're having those conversations. So I can say this one was moderate, and then I can give this just a bit of description on top of that. So I can say we had there was a fight. There was a fight. And then I can add incident notes as well. So no notes in this example. The next thing that was really important for John is he really wanted to pinpoint when the incident happened. So that way, when he's reporting to the police or any other auditing authorities, he can really have that. So with this, we now have the ability to put in the date the incident happened and also the time. And as you can see, it automatically picks up the time that I'm reporting at the moment. And this was key because sometimes when an incident happened, you want someone to submit the incident quite quickly and not have to remember a lot of information. So this kind of picks up the nearest time when I started this form. So I can click open on that. Again, massive benefit for John and his team and what they're trying to achieve. And then next to that, we can then tag this incident towards a manager that's reporting it. And for this example, I'm going to say it happened under Pep's clock as well. Now, not only were they able to advance forward in terms of the way that they inputted data, but they were now able to actually add context to it. So you can see this section here that says add attachment. So for this particular incident with the fight, I can now actually take a picture because this works across mobile as well, and then attach a picture towards this. So for this example, I'm just going to look into my data here and just going to put this meeting chat in there. So we can now attach this as well. So what this meant for John is when he was reviewing these incidences, he actually has something tangible to actually look at and actually give a bit more context than what was previously available. So I'm going to click on save onto that. And what this is going to do is going to add it into our data source as well. So we now have a new incidence that's been uploaded. But then in terms of, the ability to review, this new way of working gave John a lot of advantages. And one of the ones which was really interesting for him was the ability to filter. So as you see on the left-hand side here, you have a filtering process. So whenever John wanted to look at what's happening at Lane Road, he easily gets everything available at Lane Road. But then he can also say, I want to see everything that was reported via phone calls. And then it filters quickly as well. So this is a much better experience than what he was having when he came across to using it on Excel. You can also say, okay, I just want to focus on the high priority stuff because we've had a lot of noise from this property. And now it gave him that kind of view on top of that as well. So this now made his life much easier when he's talking to his people that he manages, and he can get across on that information across on top of that as well. But then these views just didn't stop there. So John didn't have to do this all the time. He then set up what are called custom views. So these are views that quickly summarize the information in a way that you like. So on this toggle here at the top, there's multiple views available. So if he wanted to have a view of all the incidences that have happened that are high severity, it just clicks on that button and it automatically filters on high severity. He could do the same for, viewing group by location, where it essentially groups everything by location and views it in what we call here, this is called a card format, where they're a little bit more interesting visually to have a look at as well. So this was giving him and his team a lot more options for them to be able to view this on top of it. So as you can see, these are all the different locations and the different cards. On top of that, he then had also some other interesting views as well. So one of the things he was interested in finding out is to see whether there was a pattern during particular months of incidences happen. So the next view that he was really keen on was having a calendar view. And what this does is it essentially loads up his information in a way where you can view it in a calendar view. And one of the months that was interesting to him was November. So November, he's able now to see on what days did certain incidences occur and the severity of them as well. So this made planning very easy. For next year, he knows that he could use this information, say, November last year, we had a lot of high incidences happen on the 24th. So therefore, we might need extra staff on board just to make sure that this doesn't happen again. So now he was reporting much better on this data and being able to actually action it. Next to that, we then have a board view. So this allowed John to have conversations with his team and really understand whether the severity of some of these incidences and also the labeling of them had been done appropriately. So as you can see here across the board, we have all the different categories of incidences that happen. And this works a lot like a Kanban board where you're able to just drag and drop across, and that then changes the type of incident that it is automatically. So their meetings, John's meetings with his other managers became a lot easier because it was actually actionable items where they were able to really interact and talk about some of these incidences on top of that. One thing which was very interesting for John and his team was the ability to understand kind of, every incident as it was happening. So if I click on a view for the incidences, they were able to actually have conversations about an incident. So if you take a look on the right-hand side here the most, you can see that there's been a record of a conversation about this as well. Again, this gave a lot of context to anyone that was new who onboarded and anybody who was auditing this information to really have clarity over the data and to understand why particular things were happening. And also, it allowed for them to call each other on any incidences that were urgent. So if I was to do an @ here and say @ Eldon, since I'm the only one in the tenant, and say, yep, look at this now as it's urgent. What this would then do is it will automatically send an email out to one of the managers to just let them know that this is urgent. So again, instead of becoming reactive, they were actually more proactive due to the functionality that SharePoint list was actually given them. Next to that as well was a lot of data had been lost previously, and a lot of data had been changed, and they had no idea as to how the change happened. And the wonderful thing about SharePoint list that it offered them the ability to look at the different version listing that they have. So here is a little toggle that then says version history. And what this will do is it will keep up with the different versions of the list and also tell you the changes that happened. So again, for auditing, it became a lot easier to really understand what is happening with the data. And this is just something that's not available in Excel. For individual records, they're now more protected for John's team, and they're now a lot more reliable because they tell a story for what he's trying to achieve him and his team. And also on top of this as well, they had the ability to send to the managers an individual list item and actually have a conversation about it. So here they could send the list and say, look at this, John, let's have a conversation. So just another way for them to be able to really communicate and talk with their data. So these were things that were making their life easier and making sure that they were having a better relationship with managing some of their properties, and they were actually being more reactive. And on top of this as well, what John was able to do was to set alerts onto the data. So whenever, and set conditions where whenever something high alert comes in, it automatically lets his email mailbox know to say, this is high alert, you need to have a look at it on top of that. So now what you have with SharePoint list alone is you have a more accountability because we know who created an item. And we can also have an audit trail to have a look at the history of the item and exactly what's happened to that item and the journey of it. They also had an easy way to filter. So in conversations with meetings, they were able to really just quickly get down to the information and actually make a data-driven decision rather than a decision that has no substance to it. They also had the ability to then, add comments and actually share with each other and have conversations. So as things were happening on the ground, John and his team were able to react to them and actually give proper advice to then have better outcomes to make sure the incident doesn't occur again. And also on top of that is the ability to add more context. So things like attachments. John was able to really understand what is happening in the different properties and to make sure whether people were making the right decisions and how can he improve his team. And by the end of it, his team were in a better place for them to be able to really be proactive and really manage the properties. And they started to see better improvement across that. But this didn't just stop there. John then realized he needed a way to approve some of these statuses of the things that were coming in. The issue that they had was sometimes the managers or even the individuals that were uploading them didn't perfectly understand what the category should be for this particular thing. So this opened up a new world, which is Power Automate. And essentially what Power Automate is another free app that you have access to with your Office 365. However, it's a workflow engine that allows you to automate some of the processes that you work on. So what this essentially means is that it allows you to just have automation in the background and to get you to do less work and to just make you work smarter, not harder. So whenever an incident came in, a manager then had a new role to send an incident for approval. So this is already automatically available without you having to do anything in SharePoint list. It's something that comes quite natural to it as well. So on top here, there's an automate button. And what the individual was able to do is to say, I want to request for sign off. And this brings up this pop-up on the right hand here. Just wait for that to load a moment. And with this, they were able to give the reasoning behind the incident to say why they've labeled it that way and to make sure that the manager approves it. And also to gain feedback back from the manager for them to say the reason why they either approve or reject. So I'm just going to set myself here as the approver. And then I could say, I think this is not critical to call, and it's very low severity. No one was hurt in the incident. let's see, yeah, in the incident. So now they were able to run a flow. So what that essentially does is it sends it off to John, the manager, for him with a lot more context and access to the item if he wants to have a view and look at it as well. And also just some comments, some extra comments about why that particular manager has labeled it that way, so he can have the final approval. So now if I go to my teams, you see that you will have a notification on top here. And what this notification tells me is that somebody has sent an item for approval. So if I was to click into that, it's just going to take a while to load and then come across. Yeah. So as you can see, it's then giving us a journey for us to understand, to say, yeah, can you please approve this item that's come in? And, you know, it then gives the comments that were uploaded by the manager. But then the most important thing is it gives us a link to the attachment. So if I was to click into that, it's going to head off into the attachment and allow me as John, the manager, to be able to actually read and have an understanding. And again, look at that particular item to say, okay, why is it labeled that way? Why is it listed that way? And give me a lot more context for me to make a data-driven decision, which is important. So now John has the ability to say, yep, I'm happy with the way you have labeled this. And then he can click approve or reject. But before I do that, I want to also show you that depending on where you work, it's accommodating for regardless of where you work. So if I head over to my email, you can actually see that the approval format has also been sent in my email as well. So we still have that functionality. And if it's something that's urgent, I'm able to see it in multiple ways. So either through my Teams or through my emails. So it's, again, another way that Microsoft is making sure you don't miss some of these critical data points. So now I'm going to go back to my Teams and say, yeah, I'm happy with that. And I'm going to actually show you something as well before I do that. So if I refresh the data, you will see that this, at the moment, because it's pending approval, the status has changed. So that way the sign-off status is saying pending approval. And the moment that I then approve it in my Teams, approve it, to say, yeah, I'm happy, it will ping to the person who requested it. In this case, it's me. And it also ping to the managers or to say it's been approved. And now if we go back to that data, we'll then be able to see that it's been approved. It just takes a second from time to time to see that it's been approved as well. So I'll just give one more refresh on that, just to make sure that it's more across. Yeah, so you can see that it's been approved. And the nice thing about this as well is we can have a trail of when the approve happened, because we have the ability to see the last time the item was modified. Again, you can see that it says 4 days, so that should update to say recently as well. So now you can see that John and his team, they're able to streamline a lot better from where they were with Excel. They have one true source data, so one-stop shop for all of the data. The data is very consistent. They have a process to make sure that the data is correct, and they have a way to make decisions. They have a better way to interact with the data, and also they have better backup in terms of, you know, the ability to navigate through it all. And they have a much slicker way to work that's integrated with Office 365. So it's allowing them to use a lot more of what's in the package and to really expand on the offerings. And now with this, they are, you know, making better decisions across the board. And they know that the decisions that they're making are reliable because of what SharePoint List offers, which is that stable source for you to be able to input your information and to really get your things across. So this is a much better solution than where they started from, and they're continuing to progress on that as well. So that hopefully should give you a flavor of some of the ways which you can better manage your data and how you can move forward and really ensure that you're giving yourself the best platform for your business to excel. Because as anyone knows, in today's world, data is really important, and how you host it and how you use it could really be the massive difference maker to your business. So yeah, thank you so much for attending this and having a listen to that as well. So Craig, over to you for closing.
Thank you very much, Eldon. I found that very, very interesting personally. I have an awful lot of data in spreadsheets that I probably need to move into something that's a little bit more usable. Eldon's going to come and do it all for me, so I'm okay. But yeah, we've tried to keep these nice and short and sharp as well, and there's a lot of information packed in there. We will be providing a recording. We'll get an email over to everybody next week, early next week, with a link to the recording. That email will also have my contact details, Eldon's contact details. So if you do have any questions off the back of it, or if you had another watch through and you come up with some questions, do please feel free to reach out and contact us. You'll also get an invite to the next webinar in the series. So that's in a couple of weeks' time, and that is magical document creation and collaboration with Power Automate and Teams. So it's going to be another really interesting subject, and a lot of information again packed into 30 minutes. So we are actually finishing pretty much bang on time. That's pretty good. So once again, thank you everyone for coming. And that's goodbye from myself and goodbye from Eldon.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everyone.
Cheers.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.